it is now time, once again, even though it's a bye week, for the Vol View. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into this. Let's go.
Football time in Tennessee.
The voice of the great John Ward once again bringing us into the latest edition of the Vol View live here on Carving It Up. And listen, as a Vols fan, I know you might be looking at the fact that, hey, I mean, Tennessee comes into the season, they're in the top 15, they get as high as number 11, and of course you have the loss to Florida, which was highly disappointing. But, despite the fact that with a win, curiously, we fell a spot in the AP Top 25. Listen, that we're going to get to a point in about a month with the AP. That don't mean anything. It's a college football playoff poll. That's going to mean everything to Tennessee. And by the way, let me just say, I don't think our chances to get to that particular tournament are terribly far-fetched, at least when you consider the competition in the SEC. But my Vols picked up. Let me rephrase that. Stole, dominated a big-time win. 41-20, more than doubled up the other team. All on 1 point off of the game last night between Washington and Chicago. Tennessee beat South Carolina 41-20 last week in what was, no question about it, a revenge game for my Vols, given the fact that this same South Carolina team with the same coach, the same quarterback, many of their weapons, flat out beat us up last year, put 63 on our heads, and ended our college football playoff hopes. Hendon Hooker, our starting quarterback, got injured in that game. Hendon Hooker was going to win the Heisman Trophy. I firmly believe that until his ACL went out. So it was a bad night, bad night to be a Vols fan. So to get this win the other night was big time. By the way, Joe Milton was probably had his best game of the season thus far, 21-32, 239 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, but was relatively efficient. Tennessee's run game, and again, when we talk about, and I've said this week after week after week on the Vol View, that when we talk about Tennessee, we talk about the head coach Josh Heupel. We think about this explosive, high-flying offense, and it certainly has that potential. And you saw that from time to time. There was a big-time shot that Joe Milton took where Squirrel White, the young receiver we've got there, made a spectacular acrobatic catch to set us up inside the 5-yard line. Squirrel White, by the way, had a big-time evening, 9 catches for 104 yards, also had a carry as well. So Squirrel White was, over 100 yards from scrimmage. He played well. But we talk about this high-flying offense. We often neglect the fact that Tennessee's run game just might be the best in the SEC. Tennessee against South Carolina. 40 carries, really committed to running the football. 238 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 yards a carry. You had Jalen Wright going for $123, had a 42-yard touchdown run in this game. Jabari Small went for 59 yards. Dylan Sampson went for 49, and then he had 9 yards combined from Squirrel White and Joe Milton to round it out at 238 yards rushing. So again, Tennessee got this past week Cooper Mays back, our starting center, back from injury, which made all the difference in the world. And again, against a very good South Carolina defensive front. One that had played well, had kind of beat Georgia up to a certain degree, at least the first half of the game physically, again, up front against Georgia in Athens. And they got barely any pressure on Joe Milton. They could not stop the run. And so for me as a Vols fan and for all of Vol Nation, I think we should feel great right now. Joe Milton's playing well, seems to be finding his rhythm a little bit. Really the worst part about that football game, and certainly the worst part about this Tennessee football season thus far, even exceeding the Florida loss a couple weeks back, is the fact that Brew McCoy, who is the senior wide receiver for my Vols, suffered I don't think it was a compound fracture. It may have been, but suffered just a nasty ankle injury in that football game. Very reminiscent of Dak Prescott's 3 years ago with the Cowboys. For NBA fans out there, Gordon Hayward's 6 years ago, if you remember that on opening night back in 2017 when he was with the Boston Celtics. So just a terrible injury. The fans rallied around him. His team rallied around him. And it looks like, from what I'm reading, it looks like he'll be eligible to come back next season, which is great. You never want to see a kid in his college football career like that. So, again, outside the Brew McCoy injury, it was a great night all the way around. Got revenge on South Carolina. I loved the comment from Spencer Rattler, the quarterback for South Carolina. He was a really talented kid, by the way, who, he goes out there and he says, like, good for them that they beat us up. Good for them, they got the win, and we were their Super Bowl. I got bad news, Spencer. I don't think Tennessee considers South Carolina one of its 3 biggest games this season. I think it would go Georgia number 1, because that's the number 1 team in America. Everybody's gunning for Georgia right now, and they look quite vulnerable, I might add. Alabama number 2. Listen, we beat Alabama last year, but going into Tuscaloosa, into Bryant-Denny Stadium, that's a whole different monster that Tennessee will have to conquer in just a couple of weeks after the A&M game. And then after that, to me, the 3rd biggest game for Tennessee is at Kentucky. Kentucky's playing well. They're playing good football. They're ranked. South Carolina's not ranked. South Carolina was a revenge game, certainly, but not Tennessee's Super Bowl. And I thought the Tennessee social media team did a good job of saying, like, hey, we're going to Disney World, right? To celebrate this Super Bowl. Oh, man. It's the same program. Not that I blame them, by the way. I mean, I like South Carolina, but I'm going to be objective. Same program that when they beat us last year, when we were the 5th-ranked team in the country, I'm pretty sure they rushed the field. You can check the tape on YouTube, but I have a pretty good memory. Pretty good memory in this old noggin of mine, and I'm pretty sure they rushed the field in that game. But that's neither here nor there, okay? Who cares about that? That's old news. That's the past. Can't change that. We could change what we could do a week ago against South Carolina, and we got the job done 41-20. Again, Tennessee, this is the bye week for us. Get healthy, get rested. And again, I think going the bye with momentum is huge. The offense, again, is kind of finding their rhythm. Back-to-back 40-point games in the last couple weeks following the Florida loss. So, big test, though, next week against Texas A&M. That game is going to kick off, I think, at 3:30 Eastern, the big SEC game on CBS. ESPN's giving Tennessee a 56% chance to win. A&M's 4-1. A&M actually has got Alabama tomorrow. Bama's a 2-point road favorite, so that should be interesting. I almost hope A&M wins that game, and I'll tell you why. So that you beat Alabama, you're feeling great about yourself, and then you walk into Neyland Stadium, and we understand how loud that place can get. At least I think all college football fans know that, and they underestimate us. Because A&M, if they beat Alabama, and I don't discount that because Bama literally can't score points, A&M's going to jump to the top 25. They'll likely jump Tennessee, and then we'll come in and beat them next week. But more in the A&M game next week once we get closer to kick off in that game. But great win for Tennessee against South Carolina. Enjoy the bye week, Vol Nation. Enjoy all the other college football games this week. For the record, it's actually a pretty good college football weekend. You got not Bedlam. You got Red River rivalry, Oklahoma and Texas. You got LSU, Missouri is an interesting game. Again, I mentioned Alabama and Texas A&M. Kentucky, Georgia is a sneaky good game. I think about taking Kentucky in the points. Notre Dame, Louisville. So very interesting game on this college. Interesting games on this college football schedule. Colorado plays too this weekend as well. I think they'll get the W and get back on track. Coach Prime will have those guys ready to go. So a little bit of a shorter edition of the Vol View just because there's no game tomorrow, but exciting nonetheless. Big time win over South Carolina to get revenge from a year ago. Once again, bye week. Enjoy it, Vol Nation. Enjoy it, Volunteer Football Team. Get ready to go next week against the Aggies at home in Knoxville in Neyland Stadium. Going to be a very fun matchup, no question about it. So, until next week, that is the latest edition of the Vol View, and Bryson Carver signing off. Enjoy the bye week, guys. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.